Okay, good afternoon, Pnawn da, croeso. Welcome to the Ignite stage. Thank you so much for attending. Apologies if you couldn't find the room. It is a little bit unclear exactly where the room is. I'm sure some of you got lost, but thank you so much. Compared to this morning, this is an excellent turnout, so thank you very, very much. So the session is entitled Innovation for Impact, How Technology is Delivering Net Zero. I'm sure you'd all agree, a very apt subject at the moment, very on-brand subject and topic at the moment. It is being filmed, at least the panel's being filmed. So without further ado, chairing the panel is Dr. Louise Jones. She's the manager for Wales at Innovate UK, having joined the team in September 2023. Her journey has spanned commercial research, advanced manufacturing, and collaborative academic industry partnerships, building connections across Welsh Government, industry, and academia. Now, there will be a chance to ask some questions towards the end of the session. So we start now at 2 o'clock, so we're going to go on till about 2:45. So Louise will be asking for questions towards the end. So please welcome the panel and Dr. Louise Jones.
Thank you. I didn't appreciate that my CV would be given as a conduit to me. Yeah, so I'm Louise. I'm the manager for Wales at Innovate. I've done the job for about 2 years, and one of the key things in my job is kind of being the conduit to making sure that organisations in Wales tap into funding and support. And net zero has been an area really close to my heart, so I was really chuffed to get offered to be the panel host for today. I am a new panel host, so you're getting the rookie of me. I've not done this before, so bear with me. I wanted to give each of the panellists the opportunity to talk around their breakthrough innovations, because each organisation does something differently. Rather than me asking them a strategic question, I thought they would introduce themselves. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nick Tune, CEO and co-founder of Optimise AI, and we're a spin-out from Cardiff University. And our whole focus is around helping people, infrastructure and building estates plan to get to net zero. So what the measures they need to do to actually get to an energy performance rating of a C to a B to net zero, what the steps to take, and then to actually track it live in a digital twin. So to transform, if you like, digitize the whole process and to make it easier to allow estates to get to net zero.
Hi, yes, I'm Stephen Milburn. I'm the founder and CEO at Nellie Technologies, where we build technologies that fix the climate. And to that end, we've designed, developed and deployed a bioengineered carbon dioxide removal system that's now sucking out over 100 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere from our site over in Pontyclean. We're very, very deep tech and innovation oriented. So all of our stuff generally happens in the laboratory, or it did up until about a year ago. And now I get my overalls on, me and the team building out our operational site. And we operate in the carbon dioxide removal certificate trading market, which you might know as carbon credits or offsetting. But we also produce sustainable biofertilizers and biochar.
Good afternoon. My name is Heba Bevan. I'm the CEO and founder of UtterBerry Limited. We spun out of Cambridge University over 12 years ago. And what we do, chip with neuromorphic technology, AI embedded, and we monitor all the major infrastructures like Crossrail, Tideway, and as well we've done major bridges, some of them in Wales, in Scotland, and as well like Tower Bridge, Vauxhall Bridge, Blackfriars. And we do as well function overseas. So we worked in Australia, tunnels, Hong Kong, Singapore, and US, and currently as well in Middle East. So we're expanding there. Thank you.
Hi, my name's... Sorry, is that odd? Yeah. My name's Howard Rupprecht. I'm the Managing Director of CSconnected. I feel like an old man now, but I have a 35-year experience in the microelectronics and semiconductor industry in both private and public sector in the EU, the US, and the UK. Now, our organization, CSconnected, is dedicated to the growth of the compound semiconductor cluster here in South Wales. Now, for the uninitiated among you, compound semiconductors are made into essential components for everything that you need in net zero, but I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Fab, thank you. So we've had some great insights already. I hope you are thinking of questions to challenge my panel too. I'd really like now to think about barriers and challenges you see in adoption and scale for your innovations more broadly. Appreciate that you're all from quite different areas. So I'm going to start with Nellie Tech, and I've concocted a question around partnerships or policy shifts that are more critical to scale from your technology.
I'm going to ask you to just say that again, Louise. It covered two different areas, so I'm trying to think of the best response, if you wouldn't mind.
So what partnerships or policy shifts are most critical to scale bio-based carbon removal globally?
I think the partnerships that we have created and will create have to be led by the policy, and they are led by the policy. We operate in the voluntary carbon market. There's a big paper produced by DESNZ and UKGov over the summer about the merge of the voluntary carbon market into the compliance market post-2029. So we now have a clarity as a business on where that policy is going, and it's in lockstep with EU Commission policies. That's really good for us, but it's been a while for that policy to be announced. And the partnerships we need to make to address that policy and monetize it are driven by the legislation itself. So voluntary carbon market now means that the companies that we sell our carbon credits to, our certificates, are doing it out of their own good. And it's a great thing that they're doing it, but they're doing it to reduce their scope 2 and 3 emissions that they generally can't do themselves. We are the decarbonizer of last resort. We're not there to prevent other industrial decarbonisation. But as this market tapers towards compliance, those partnerships that we need to create with our buyers become very, very different. So rather than a voluntary carbon market where a lot of focus is put on the fact that we're delivering this product and technology in the UK rather than passing off your responsibilities to the Global South or something like that. That's really nice and is one of our main selling points in what we do. But as it tapers to 2030 in the compliance market, we need to compete on price. We have a price premium at the minute because we're one of the very few certified organisations in Northern Europe that are able to supply this quality carbon credit. And we trade heavily on that, as you probably imagine. But towards 2030, that margin has to reduce, and we have to reach the floor price of what the compliance market will request, which is around about £100 per tonne, and we're currently selling for more than £100 per tonne at the moment. So the partnerships that are required to do that mean we need to scale quicker. So I thought that when I first started the business 4 years ago, that our partnerships would be closer to maybe DESNZ and government policymakers, but the partnerships we actually need now are larger scale engineering partnerships to take what we have at pilot and semi-scale and getting that to full production level by 2030, because that's only 4 years away. And to get from 100 tonnes to 100,000 tonnes by the end of 2028 is quite a challenge. And it's if you have an engineering background, it's just impossible to kind of 1000x your site within 18 months. So the partnerships that we started to create now are with industrial partners who will help us scale our technology for our commercial benefit, but also for theirs. So it's gone from being a kind of nice science project to being something that's actually now quite serious.
I feel like you've learned a lot in no time at all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rapid journey. Thank you. I'm going to run it in my order of questions. So if you pass to Howard, please. What strategies can accelerate the transition from using semiconductor R&D to widespread use in energy systems?
Thank you, Louise. I mean, I think this is a question that really gets into how the market works and what we do in the UK when it comes to scaling up of technologies. So, the route of scaling up semiconductors is twofold. In regular logic circuits, it tends to be there are opportunities for companies that don't have their own manufacturing, called fabless companies, to actually get other people to make their semiconductors. With a lot of the compound process flows, they're not able to be made in that way. So you have this need for a proprietary manufacturing process to make things from anything from lasers to power electronics to other things. And so really the question you've got is what kind of investment is done to scale up from an R&D project to a working device that can be sold into applications ranging from wind farms to solar panels to electric vehicle charging. And I think, that really gets to one of the challenges the UK has. The UK has been really, really good at innovation, but actually very, very poor on scale up. And so, the danger we have is that we develop wonderful technologies and then somebody else overseas decides to invest in that technology that we've done and makes it elsewhere and then sells it back to us somewhere further down the line. And we're also living in a rather broken market as well, where there's a lot of subsidies, whether it's America, Europe, or Asia, for semiconductor manufacturing. That means it's not really a level playing field. So, you know, the big asks that I would have to to go to your question, how do you accelerate the transition, is people have to be planning not just for the R&D, but how we're going to take it to production in the future.
Good, great answer, thank you. Heba, I'm going to ask you now for what key lessons from projects like Crossrail you think will shape the next generation of smart cities?
I think as you said it right, one of the things which is we've got difficulties in the UK is not the R, the D, the actually getting the biggest scale development and getting our technology, not just in a Crossrail, all over the world. One of the problems and challenges we have in the UK, Crossrail was a perfect example for a smart city. It adapted a lot of technology and from universities, from first R&D. It was a great an example for even trialing different technologies and bringing these technologies to life. Being a CPU engineer for ARM for many years before actually I started UtterBerry, it's one of the danger of having companies stuck within the R. That is the scale up. And I think for us, we need to be challenged by different projects, such as the Crossrail. So it was a great example, HS2, unfortunately, that is being kind of minimized to the lower levels and a huge amount of money spent on the consultation rather than actually the development of it. And I think there is a huge amount of projects which I've suggested it before. I think in Wales, for example, if there is a hydraulic energy, which is very, very green, it could be done. UK actually could be depending 10% of its power on wells. And that is, yes, I can appreciate that might be billions of pounds of money that it could be spent. But right now, our energy sources, we are one of the most expensive energies in the UK. Most of our energy comes in from France, and especially the southeast. And all of our other energy sources we have is not owned by UK infrastructure. So if we think about big project that could actually bring in smart cities, I think energy one key element. Of course, there are certain project which is going on, which is like the nukies with Rolls-Royce and having the smaller nuclears. But these are really, unfortunately, takes a really long time to do. And in terms of resources, we really need to think about the areas. And I think wells, it could be a part of that answer and solution for these hurdles.
Lovely, thank you. And then Nick, I'm going to hand over to you around the main hurdles in getting estate managers to invest in optimisation and how do you overcome them?
So the big thing holding estate managers of buildings, back from optimising them, I would say it's really down to data, and usually there's not enough data about the assets or too much data about the assets. And it's certainly when there's too much data, people generally don't understand what all this data means, and nor should they really, because there's so many people who I speak to who go and install a load of sub-meters or a load of IoT devices. But if all you get back is raw data, the estate managers can't understand that. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible to collate all these different disparate sets of data to give, if you like, intelligence to that, simple to understand guidance on what you've got to be able to actually make informed decisions of, right, this is how best to manage my asset, to improve it, and then to measure that benefit over time. So, it's the bringing clarity to the data point that's really important. And actually, the whole AI piece is really, really helping in that.
Sorry, can I come in on this one? Yeah. Can I add on? Well, with UtterBerry system, which is a neuromorphic chip, actually is the AI on the edge. So you don't just get data. The data is being captured from the environment, and it gives us exactly what is needed to be done, and we've proven over and over again. We won the Best Innovation Award for Crossrail when we detected cracks happening in hospitals before it happened. We've detected amount of water coming into certain tunnels before it happens. So there are different ways to detect and give us very, very great data. And I do agree totally with you. There is so many examples where we're just collecting data without needing and approaching it in a different way, that we need to see the value of that data. And I think AI on edge, it really takes more important than having a cloud, because people, we need to understand a cloud aren't cheap, and it still uses a huge amount of energy, which is, if we think about the number of pictures we take and we save it on different devices and it sits on a cloud, actually that is as well, it's the amount of CO2 and emissions just caused by data centers is massive. So how can we actually get the right data? It should be kind of a triggered and analysis of it at the chip, at the cutting edge, where I think compound semiconductor would play a huge amount of feed for that. Thank you.
That sounds like a collaboration opportunity there, which leads me on to my next questions. So, see, the whole purpose for me of Wales Tech Week is come here and seeing people networking and coming up with collaborative ideas, and then potentially coming to Innovate for funding, which obviously I would say, because I work for Innovate UK. We know to achieve net zero, we can't do it in silos. So I guess my ask for this next section is, where do you see the opportunities for collaboration? I'll start with Nellie Tech, and particularly in the sector stand to benefit most from your technology. How do you ensure permanence and transparency? Are there any that are really painful to tackle?
Painful collaborations.
Or just sectors that are really hard to get into?
Sectors are really hard to get into. I mean, yeah, all of them for us, given our size. I mean, no, not really. We have, in fact, I think it's fair to say that the people who give us money tend to come from the financial services industries, the insurance sector, that kind of thing. They are very forward-thinking with regards to their exposure, I think, to failing to tackle net zero, particularly in the insurance sector. The financial services sector as well. London has now become, I think, undisputably the heart of the carbon trading market in the world. Singapore is a very close second. The US has kind of dropped the ball on it slightly. So everything is happening in London. And you have large financial institutions, insurance companies that recognize this 2030 point, where the removal of carbon dioxide and the reduction in your emissions is not a nice to have, but it's an essential, and you will be taxed and you will suffer if you do not. That's not a threat that we would use, but it's a threat that the government will use. And so it's very easy for us to explain what we do, how we do it, in a very straightforward way. Our production site is maybe half an hour down the M4. If you're ever passing, you're welcome to come. It's a very easy three-stage process where you can see the carbon dioxide coming out of the air, being turned into a green kind of carbon, and then turned into a very black kind of carbon, and then put away for a very long period of time. And so you've got forward-thinking organizations which are buying from us now because they have risk analysis of what 2030 looks like if they don't. Then we have, I would say, another tier where it's less easy for us to integrate with, which is heavy industry, which we need to. And that goes back to my first point about us needing to integrate and collaborate and partner with heavy industry, not just because we need the skill sets from that to expand, but also because there is a decarbonization requirement in their operations now that we can help address. The issue is, if you're running a steel plant or a concrete plant or something that is really, heavy, dirty, and is in essence seen as almost like the kicking bag, I think, for net zero. It's like, oh, you're a dirty producer, but the fact is we need the products that come out of these industries. We can't just turn off steel production, we can't turn off concrete, we can't make the planes come down from the sky, we have to fly them. And I think screaming and shouting at these hard-to-abate industries is not the way forward. I think working collaboratively with them through the transition for the next 5 to 10 years to decarbonize is the way forward. But there's a day-to-day requirement in those industries which make it harder for them to listen to us or see us or want to work with us in the first instance. We've got a project starting at a really big industrial site down near Bridgend in February next year, and that's taken a year. That's taken a year of gentle conversation about them coming to our site, seeing the technologies that we do. Us visiting them, telling them how unintrusive our technology would be on site and how we can integrate with their current operations. So heavy industry is quite hard for us to integrate with because there are more pressing problems on a day-to-day basis than dealing with what 2030 and 2035 looks like. And just to go to the nth degree on that question, we've now, we operated in a silo for the first 2 years. We developed all of our own technology. We didn't partner with an academic institution to get our first patent over the line. And that wasn't because we were so protective or we don't like playing in a team. It was purely because it was the quickest way for us to get that patent over the line and to protect it for future use. But there are so many more innovations in our technology and how we integrate it that time for playing in our own little silo is gone now. So we have to make those academic partnerships as well. Do you think that's answered the question? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think the permanence and transparency that was the end of the...
I was listening with the data points that you were both making, because my previous life was I'm a physicist by training, and then I went into computer science, and then latterly data science for a while. I'm terrible, so please don't ask me about that later. But we've developed our own MRV platform, our own monitoring, reporting, and verification platform, which has a bit of data science in it. It was kindly funded by Innovate UK, actually, so thank you, Louise. And it is now regarded as one of the best in the industry. It's a small industry in which we work in, but it's internationally where, I know all the people, they all know me, and it's regarded quite highly. And that process of doing the monitoring, reporting, and verification, which delivers your sequestration level, your permanence level is how long that carbon will stay out the atmosphere for. That is the point that we are judged by. Our MRV platform and sequestration level is our come and kick the tires project, because we can show you all the bubbly things. We can show you the furnace turning carbon biomass into biochar, but what really counts is how long is that carbon staying out the atmosphere for. So that MRV process that we go through is painful, as it should be, because without that pain and without the diligence on what we do, the market will suffer, and we really can't afford another failing in the veracity of the carbon markets, because I think we're on our final legs now. So if we find other bad actors, so our MRV platform is absolutely critical to delivering that and showing proof in the pudding of what we do.
Lovely, thank you. Howard? What role does the South Wales cluster play in creating a competitive advantage for the UK in clean tech innovation?
Right. I think let's start by talking about collaboration. And collaboration is not new to the semiconductor industry. The global semiconductor industry is based on collaboration, and that's really because no one country has full capability to do everything, and I'd include even the United States in that. If you want the latest lithography tools, you have to buy them from ASML in Holland. So we all rely on each other. We're also an industry that spends about 17% of total revenue on R&D. And that's second only to the pharmaceutical industry in the world. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is collaboration is both essential, but is also second nature for the industry as a whole. And that collaboration stems from, not just R&D, but through to production and quite complex global supply chains. So the reason why I raised that is your question was about, where does Wales play? Now, Wales has unique sovereign capability in compound semiconductor design and manufacturing. We were the first cluster in the world to really focus on these particular skills. And what that gives us from a global semiconductor industry and political perspective is essentially a seat at the table. We have a tradable commodity that is important in the industry and is important in the world, and that's how we plug into the semiconductor industry. And there's actually, very few things, very few areas of the semiconductor industry where we could say that. You mentioned ARM earlier. Design is one of the other areas where the UK has this tradable commodity. So when I look at Wales, I say we have this cluster here that is an important part of the UK's participation and future participation in the semiconductor industry. Now, in terms of what part that plays for net zero, that's something slightly different. And what I would say, I touched on it earlier, but you don't do clean energy without compound semiconductors. And let's just talk about some of those applications. So We're currently seeing a lot of things happening with electrification of vehicles. Don't have to preach that here, but suddenly when you're trying to charge things at hundreds of volts with much more power, you can't do that with silicon components. So we take materials like silicon carbide and gallium nitride, and they're finding their way into applications ranging from fast charging to control of electric motors to converting power from AC to DC and all of those kind of things. So the electrification is a huge market for compound semiconductors. Next thing, a bit more of a commodity these days, but solar cells. I mean, most solar cells are a compound semiconductor. We don't really do a lot of manufacturing for that there. Certainly a lot of the mainstream stuff is quite commoditized. Another thing, LED lights. I've never seen such a transition from a new technology to again being commoditized very, very quickly, but LED lights are fundamentally enabled by compound semiconductors. And then an area that's probably not as visible would be photonics in general. So you hear a lot of talk about data centers. The moment you move away from the optical networks and start switching and transmitting data in copper, it's very, very slow, and it uses more energy. And as we know, data centers create a lot of waste energy. So where compound semiconductors contributes is in photonic components for optical interconnect. And you might have heard of things like co-packaged optics, where you're taking optical fiber connections directly to the processors in servers and that kind of thing. So these are some of the examples where compound semiconductor plays an essential technical role in enabling net zero from a whole lot of different dimensions.
Lovely, thank you. Heba, from a UtterBerry point of view, how do you see AI and IoT evolving to make urban environments truly net zero?
Well, AI is basically a buzzword, which is, I think, is for the last couple of years. However, we've been working on AI for many, many years, even before these 2 years, and it became more important as ChatGPT and other platforms coming in, DeepSeeks and all of these other platforms, which is, I would say, they are not truly AI, because basically it's very good search engine. It's very good way to search different platforms and different things. But if we think about it, these engines is actually, they consume a huge amount of power. So if you think about a factory, every time you do a search, basically on a Google, you're lighting a light bulb. But when you do actually ChatGPT, you're lighting a whole entire building of a light bulb. So it's a huge amount of energy is consumed. AI and I would say UK in specific, we were probably the leaders for AI. Unfortunately, because of the power, we can't be a leader, because the amount of it drains and it needs that power, which is, I think, in here where we need compound semiconductors, it will work really hand in hand in that technology. And the UK need to put itself again in the map on actually pushing AI and IoT sectors, because without data, we can't actually have reliable AI. Having data, and very, very good data, it needs definitely neuromorphic chips, or it does need sensors. And sensors, if you look at the technology, we're moving from MEMS to compound semiconductors, and we're trying to move more to compound, because the reliability of compound semiconductors, the power is less that it consumes, enable us to do probably way more than we traditionally able to do. So this technology is very key for moving forward and moving actually a huge element from decarbonization and net zero in a positive way. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Nick, so looking ahead, how can AI help us move from compliance to proactive carbon reduction strategies?
I think it kind of builds on nicely from Heba's last comment. It's about the use of data again and how we use that. And in terms of collaboration, You know, we are people, our expertise is making sense of the information, making sense of the data, but first we need to get it to put into things like our machine learning models. A really good example is we're just starting with Welsh Water on a project where they've got all their smart meters for their business customers. They cover, I don't know, about a third of their business customers have smart meters. But if we have enough of that quality data, we can make machine learning models that we can train on those data sets to give a high level of accuracy, even when there isn't the data available. So you can see now how, again, working with the likes of yourselves and actors who have the data, if we bring that in and we train the right models on it, you can get such great insights that you never previously had available. And kind of moving, if you like, from a regulatory to really making the most of it, it's people often ask me what's our biggest competitor. Our biggest competitor actually isn't another technology provider. Our biggest competitor is the status quo, which is just consultancy. As in, we usually, people, when they look at a building to work out how to decarbonize it, to do it the same as I did when I graduated, you go and visit, you kind of measure up, you find out what it is, you go on an Excel spreadsheet, you put some figures in, and you say, this is your route map and this is what you need to do. The point which I'm trying to get across now is with the right actors, the right collaborators, you can actually turn the information you've got into something that's live and intuitive, and using machine learning and AI to help us get to that journey and do it in a much more streamlined, improved way than we currently are doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I recall speaking to a company that said they're sick of people knocking on their door trying to get them to be energy efficient and trying to sell them solar for their roof. And that's not the thing that you should be starting with. It should be actually what are your strategies, what part of your manufacturing line is costing you the most, and is it inefficient, and where do you start? So that's smart use of data rather than just trying to sell them the next bit of tech that might.
You've teed up an Innovate UK bid I'm actually in the process of writing at this moment in time.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you. I have allowed, we're a little bit ahead of time. I have allowed some questions from the audience at this stage, but I have some backup questions if you aren't willing. So anyone from the audience like to ask a question of our panel while you've got them on the spot? There's a... I'm happy to be...
Just shout. No, it's being recorded. It went up.
So this panel discussions was all about net zero, and I'm assuming it's net zero in the UK, but the UK's emissions is a very small percentage of the global emissions. So what's the strategy? Is the strategy show and tell? Are we going to show how we can do it and then tell everyone else they should do the same? How do you affect the global carbon dioxide levels?
I think you'll find from tech businesses like us is it starts from a lot of show, doesn't it? Because you use the UK as your test bed like we do because we know it. And then when you've proven the case and your business case, you then want to sell it globally to others to take it on. The only, in terms of us going global, the only thing stopping us is just the different standards that you're trying to adhere to. But at the end of the day, buildings are buildings and energy is energy. So it's completely, scalable. And I would imagine just looking at, my colleagues here, they would be exactly the same. So test bed here and then obviously look to go global.
If you just sort of passing down the line, if you don't mind, I'm just going to, again, can you rephrase your question? Just get straight to the point.
The net zero is net zero in the UK. That's the target. That's what we're getting to.
That's not what I signed up to the panel for.
Right.
When I'm sitting working late nights in the lab, it's not trying to just do net zero in South West Wales. It's all South Wales. It's it's for global impact. I mean, you'll know that if we remove a ton of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere here, it makes no difference whether we do it in Cambodia, Latin America, or here. The end result over a period of time, and carbon dioxide, not shorter-lived greenhouse gases, is the same.
And if people don't choose to copy, but for political reasons or whatever reasons, where does that leave us?
So I think if you'll indulge us in talking about the two things that we sell a carbon dioxide removal certificate, which is, as I say, voluntary now, then mandated further down the line, that can't be bought in from outside of the market that's being created. So we have a border control mechanism in the EU, which the UK is part of. So you can't just buy in. Let's say someone came up to our unit and copied every bit of technology and launched it in China, for instance. If they replicated it there, the core value of that product is a certificate, and it couldn't be traded in the EU market or the UK market. So even if the technology was copied, it couldn't be traded in the EU market. It can only be traded within, because it's like import-export tax on the credit as it comes in. The other thing would be the production of the biofertilizer that comes out the other side of the system. Yes, and of course someone could copy it, but it's not just using the UK as a test bed. Not for us anyway. It's using the UK, not using the UK, we are in the UK. It's developing the system to address the market that is really the forefront of that market is here in the UK. And again, not speaking to the semiconductor industry or the data science industry, it's really, really exciting to be in this, because for the first time in a long time, we have a market here that the UK is a global leader in, and we're known as the global leader in it, and we get to address that market from first principles. So yeah, there will be replication of this technology in the markets globally, but we always see it, and I know my colleagues in the sector see it, as we will steal a march on that. So we will deploy our technology in these markets rather than having it copied. That would be my response from kind of in my specific sector.
Thank you. I've got a slightly different view, meaning, if the UK or if the world is to achieve net zero, it's probably not going to be because of what we're doing. And what I mean by that is that it'll be a combination of policy, political will, technology, which will support those aims, and incentives, which maybe comes down to the policy and political will to get people to change behaviors and do things. And so I like to think of what we're doing as, I guess, providing a small part of the technology to help facilitate that change going forward. So if I look at the cluster in South Wales, 95% of what we make is exported. And that's basically because a lot of the things that this will go into, or the next stage of production of that device, will not happen in the UK. So if we take something as simple as, the LiDAR chip in your iPhone, not particularly a net zero thing, but it's an example of a device. It might start life in IQE as a wafer. It then goes somewhere else and then gets packaged, and then it might go somewhere for assembly in China or Korea and come back in the phone that you buy on the high street. And actually, not all phones will have a part from IQE, and they might come from other suppliers and other things as well. So when I say we play a small part, we make components, and they will go into some applications and not others. So our power electronics might go halfway around the world and end up back in your car or in your charging station. We probably don't make anything here that will end up in a solar panel, other than maybe some very specialist stuff for military and other applications. So I guess I'm not trying to change the world by myself. I say we're just contributing technology that supports the goal of net zero going forward.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Laurie. I started a software development business a year ago, and part of our mission is to equally put profit alongside impact in our sort of success and our mission. I wonder, when it comes to the governance of your businesses, does impact sit alongside profit when it comes to your success criteria? How do you balance those things?
As a business, you have to think about a profit, because you can't scale up, you can't grow, and you have to look for ways. You are, in the end of the day, you're a business, not a charity. So definitely profit for any business is very important for making that business actually stand out and survive and grow. So profit is very important key, but as well impact. If you're designing something that nobody needs, I think that is going nowhere. It would not scale up. So definitely you need to think about something that everybody needs, and once they need it, it will come in as a profit as well, because the demand increase the revenue, and they are hands in hands, and they move into the demand and supply, and you're able to grow as a business. So for when I started the business, yes, we do have a huge impact because we monitor major infrastructure, making sure they don't collapse. All the data is very crucial. As an AI, it provides a way of monitoring system to warn other kind of element into it, in how you could change behavior, or when you can change tunneling, or how when you need to close certain exits or certain bridges or certain roads, how you kind of demographically change certain levers to enable you to make sure that data is safe, or the people which is using these infrastructure is safe. So definitely the impact is part of it, but in the same time, when we price and when we trying to see the project, 100% you think, okay, I need to scale, I need more engineers, I need to produce more, I need to have more stocks. So you need to think about it in the same time.
So our organisation is a not-for-profit, so it's 100% impact, not to be contrary or anything. So everything we do is measured on what the impact is, and we're also receiving quite a lot of public money to do our things as well. So that's a really easy question. What I would say for the companies within the cluster, I think is a much harder question. I think all of the companies are certainly socially responsible, but when you're making electronic components, you ultimately don't know where they end up. So let's say I'm making chips and I'm selling them through a global distributor. They could end up in your electric car charger, or they could end up in a drone that is flying around the Ukraine and bombing people. And I'm not saying that's what's coming out of the company. I'm saying that's just the nature of the business. So it's very hard to differentiate where your component actually ends up, because it's dual use in most cases.
Okay, I'll overlap the point. I guess it depends on the type of business and how you set it up to begin with. So ours is all about saving energy, saving carbon, saving water. So if I'm doing those things, I should be making a profit, and I won't be making a profit if I'm not doing those things.
I mean, just because I've probably got the easiest answer on the panel, that we only get paid when we remove a ton of carbon dioxide. So if you agree that removing a ton of carbon dioxide has a positive impact, then it's literally all we do. It's our functional unit. There's nothing else in the company that matters apart from that 1 ton of carbon dioxide. So there's not really a long-winded answer to that. Yes.
In the 4 minutes that we have, 3 minutes that we have left before I get the glare from this side of the audience, I wanted some key takeaways, so each of you to give maybe 60 seconds of what thing we should do differently. What's your key call to action?
A call to action.
Yeah, or what we would do differently.
I guess that call to action is a good one. A call to action for me would be certainly if you're. My ask would be if you have buildings, if you're managing estates, how can you utilize the data that you've got to improve their performance? Give us a bell. We'll help you do it. But in all seriousness, have a think about the information you've got. Have a think how you can actually exploit that information to give better outcomes in the management of your assets, for instance.
Oh, it's recorded, so I have to stay on the record, right? Yeah. I think it's confidence, not just in Wales, but in the UK. So having the confidence to go out there and you build your technology, you go out and you try and flog your technology, and it's like the most terrifying thing in the world the first time someone who's smarter than you, which is pretty much everyone in this room probably compared to me, turns up at your site and goes, that's all right. And then that's a really nice part, and that helped our business be more confident in selling what we sell around the world, where we are the UK's biggest carbon dioxide removal certificate exporter. If that means anything, it sounds quite impressive saying it out loud. But the key takeaway, I think, is that I would like people in my specific sector, not speaking to the rest of the panel, but within carbon dioxide removal, to stop relying and blaming government and policymakers. when you can just go out there and sell this stuff now. You make the connections, the collaborations with heavy industry, with financial services, with farming like we do. They're hard connections to make. You're selling a new product in a new market, but you need to get out of the door and do it. Get your technology out of the lab, get it into a garage and get it to scale. And then stop relying on someone else to give you grant money all the time and say, no, well, we can't make this innovation until government's given us clear policy direction on what we're looking to do. It's like, no, just go out and do it. And especially in the voluntary market, it's yours for the taking. You know, a lot of these net zero, beyond net zero innovations, there's a really massive willing market for them. And you don't have to wait for anyone else's permission to go and sell it. Just get out the door and sell your technology. So that would be my takeaway.
I think adaptations to technologies, like we need to adopt technology faster, and if we really want to be a leader in anything, we need to adapt the technology faster and integrate it into our system and our ecosystem. And I know and understand UK is very small to the world. We export as well in a 90% more than actually supplying the UK, because we don't have that many big projects in the UK going on as the rest of the world. But I think adaptation needs to start at home, and it needs to help companies to scale up.
Right, mine is really simple. The call to action is invest in education and skills. Without educated and skilled people, we are not going to grow our cluster or our industry. So for me, that is number one, and it is also our competitive advantage. So despite what Mr. AI said in this morning's keynote speech, I do believe that people are going to be needed, not loads of Elon Musk robots. Thank you.
I don't know, I can follow that. I kind of feel like that's the mic drop moment. Thanks, Howard. Thanks, everyone, for listening for this afternoon session. I think the key messages for me, everything about innovation we do in Wales is really essential, and we are pushing forward. We've heard a lot of the technologies on offer from our panel today, but how we turn these into mainstream solutions, and obviously can't do that in silos. So those in the audience, please help us in doing more. Thank you, panel. I found that really insightful. We stuck to time. I didn't get the look. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.